Dear friends, recently our new Pope Leo has brought out a fantastic apostolic exhortation through the encyclical, his first encyclical, Dilexi Te, means I have loved you. In all means, it is a continuation of late Pope Francis's encyclical, which is called Delixit Nos. He loved us. That was the meaning of it. And this document is a continuation of it. And Dilexi Te offers a profound invitation to all of us to rediscover the heart of the gospel. Especially gospel means love expressed through justice, compassion, solidarity, and so on, especially for the poor. The document proclaims that faith without active love for the marginalized, the poor, the anabim is incomplete. Rooted in the life of Christ, who identified himself with the least of these, Dilexit Te is asking us to walk with those excluded and wounded by social, economic, and cultural injustices. Faith, love, and the preferential option for the poor is a centrality of this document. In Dilexit Te, Pope Leo affirms that God's preferential love for the poor is not an exclusion, but the invitation to recognize in the poor the face of Christ. True discipleship requires a transformation of heart, moving from indifference to involvement. And it also calls for charity and solidarity with the poor. And what does it signify for Catholic schools and universities? It means a lot for them. It means that our education must be a ministry of love, forming hearts that see, judge, and act with compassion. The poor and marginalized are not objects of pity, but partners of our shared journey towards justice and peace. This is the important thing we need to note. I'm sure that you remember the connection of this document with Pope Francis's global compact on education. And Pope Francis at that time told us that educators, we are supposed to build a culture of encounter, promoting fraternity, ecological responsibility, and inclusion. Similarly, the Jesuit document, the Jesuits actually we call its universal apostolic preferences. That also the second one remind us that we must be men who walk with the marginalized people. As Airupe's language, in short, we are all supposed to be men and women for others, committed to walking with the poor and healing the broken world. Accordingly, I think the education mission in India must reflect and discern and act upon seriously. Our context is different. Our context has changed a lot during the past 1 decade or more. We have new challenges has emerged. Our India's pluralistic and stratified society continues to face deep economic disparity, caste discrimination, gender bias, ecological destruction, and digital exclusion. And the National Education Policy 2020 rightly highlights equity and inclusion as a guide, as one of the guiding principles of education, aiming to ensure education for all, especially for socially and economically disadvantaged groups, which they call ACDGS. And therefore, Catholic education must respond creatively to these challenges in the light of the gospel and the teaching. So therefore, I urge our educators a few important points to keep in mind. We must sensitize ourselves first and sensitize other people. And therefore, a few things schools can practice. Number one is prioritize the education of the poor. It implies a lot, recognizing that the education of the poor is not a favor, but a duty and a fundamental requirement for the recognition of human dignity. Institution must actively work to make education available to all, not only for the rich people. Especially, we need to focus on the marginalized people, the migrants, the refugees, the weaker sections, and the poor. Secondly, we must cultivate an economy of solidarity. Our institutions, Catholic institution, Christian institution, should promote sharing and mutual support in contrast to the logic of accumulation and self-interest. This involves the teaching students and systematic injustices and developing effective policies for societal change, because the students are change makers. We must make them change makers. And they are not going to just offering temporary aid for the suffering people. It's not only mere charity. Therefore, socio-cultural analysis must be a priority in our institutions. The education action plan, therefore, must combine both individual charitable actions or alms giving, we can call, and efforts to change unjust social and economic structures. Students should be encouraged to make their voices heard, to denounce these unjust practices. The third point is staff formation. Teachers are the first agents of transformation in our schools, in our society. Regular workshops and interest programs of that sort, workshops and seminars, can help them internalize the social teachings. Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti, Dilexit Nos, and Dilexi Te. A summary of this can be given to our teachers through the seminars and workshops so that they will understand what does it all mean. And the fourth point is student awareness. We must make students aware of all these things through curriculum and activities in our classes, etc., should include exposure to the lives of the poor and the marginalized. Immersion programs, service learning, peace clubs, and environmental action teams can awaken empathy and sympathy responsibly. Learning should lead to doing. Projects that connect classroom knowledge with the social realities, etc. And the fifth point is parent engagement. School can organize seminars and dialogues with the parents to deepen their awareness of inclusivity and solidarity. I think it is very, very important, because students learn a lot from their families, and if the families are not sensitivity to people, especially the poor, then children are not going to get easily. And therefore, families must be invited to share in the mission of forming children who are not self-centered, but socially conscious and generous people. To achieve all these, we need a policy renewal in Catholic education. In our schools, individuals and collectively, when we look at for a lasting impact, institutions must review their policies, and regional organizations, the dioceses and so on, congregations must review their policies and structures to reflect gospel values and social equity in accordance with the Dilexi Te, very specially, and all other documents which I mentioned. And therefore, the areas of change can include a few points. According to me, admissions and accessibility in our schools must be looked into seriously. Prioritizing inclusion of children and marginalized, tribal, Dalits, and economically poor backgrounds, etc. Scholarship, flexible fee structures, and community sponsorship programs can be introduced, and that can help the people. Curriculum design also, we must look at not only teaching in the schools, Catholic educators must think of forming curriculum, design curriculum, integrate peace education, environmental education, and social justice into academic planning. Indian Social Institute in Delhi has already came out with new textbook for moral sciences for our schools. It can be a great help for all of us in our schools in India. Third point is teacher training. Continuous formation is value-based pedagogy. Continuous formation in value-based pedagogy, intercultural dialogue, and inclusive education methods, etc., has to be given. And institutional culture also must change and review, promote ethical leadership, participatory decision making, and transparent governance rooted in compassion and justice. And fifth point is community collaboration. In fact, the NEP, one of the key principles is the community participation. We are also saying the same thing. Partner with the NGOs, local self-help groups, and interfaith organizations, ecumenical groups, etc., for grassroots empowerment initiatives. The sixth point I propose is ensure technology that serves people. In the digital age, Catholic education must provide human-oriented digital training, prioritizing people before algorithms, in the language of Pope Francis and also Pope Leo. And ensuring that technology is used to create connections and serve the marginalized, and not to further isolation and inequality. Such policies will make our institutions not only centers of learning, but living laboratories of love, justice, care, and concern for people, and concern for the creation. Heads of schools and managers must adopt more creativity in their schools with regards to this. More innovation and empowerment of the poor in our educational endeavors. In fact, Dilexi Te and Laudato Si invite educators to be creative and prophetic. My dear friends, as we face several changes like climate crisis, poverty, and digital divide in our society, we must make all our efforts with a fresh approach to teaching and learning, use of technology, and pastoral care. Schools and colleges must move beyond rote learning to foster critical thinking, innovation, and social responsibility. Education must empower students to become agents of transformation, people who can build a more humane and sustainable world. And therefore, the convergence of Dilexi Te, NEP 2020, UNESCO's Education 2030 agenda, Pope Francis's Global Compact and the Jesuit Society's UAPs offer a powerful roadmap for Catholic educators in India. All stress equity and inclusion, justice and sustainability, collaboration and responsibility. In the spirit of Dilexi Te, this shared mission calls for a united effort. Educators, parents, church, and society to build communities of love and justice. In conclusion, I urge all of you that as Dilexit reminds us, to love God is to love the poor, to educate is to serve, and to teach is to build peace. Catholic education in India must continue to stand as a beacon of hope and transformation, grounded in faith, committed to inclusion, and inspired by love. When our schools and universities and or colleges align their vision with Laudato Si, Dilexit Nos, and Dilexit Te, they become sacred spaces to encounter, where peace, justice, and love for the marginalized are not only taught but lived by everyone. Such education truly embodies the gospel message. I have loved you, now you go and do likewise. Hope our Catholic or Christian educators heed this call and read the signs of the time to make our education relevant and true to the time. Let us all pledge ourselves that we would be educators of peace, educators for the marginalized, educators who love the poor, the weak, the marginalized. May God bless us all.